All right, so today we are with Miss D. Davey in our chamber chat, and the way that it works, we all know, is we want to pull pearls of wisdom from your brain.
I have pearls.
I know, so that's good. You're prepared. Okay, so I want to start by asking you. I know that you were born and raised in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Give me some snippets of impressions that were made on you during those years that still resonate with you today.
I was raised in not a poor family. We were very middle class. My dad always had a job. I loved school. I loved my teachers. I always wanted to dress like my teachers and look like my teachers. I loved to read. I would join the library reading classes every summer. My mom went to beauty school, and I would stay in the library in the morning and go to the theater in the afternoon. It was wonderful. I loved it. I always won the contest for reading the most books, and that was just my pastime. Not very athletic. Played basketball, but I wasn't good at it at all. I was a cheerleader. I wasn't that good at that either. The only thing I ever did was I won the Miss CHS contest, and I probably was not the prettiest girl in school, but I did sing the best. So that was my big deal. I thought if I can just win the Miss CHS contest, I'll be something. That didn't work either. I mean, you are what you are. Had great parents, very integrity-minded, big Baptist background.
Yes.
I never lied. I didn't want to lie. I thought everything was, you had to be right on target. I didn't lie to my parents. I mean, that wasn't something that was in my psyche.
So going through school, did you know what you wanted to do?
I remember thinking when I was growing up that I wanted to be something in public relations. And so when I started college, there were no public relations curriculum. So I'm like, okay. So I ended up in marketing, which is pretty much, and how more public relations can you get than real estate, really? And so I immediately got into real estate, and that's pretty much where I wanted to be when I was a kid.
Okay. Now, how did you get from Arkansas to Texas?
That would be via a husband.
Okay.
My husband.
Did you meet him in Arkansas?
Yes, actually, I did.
Okay.
Lovely story. We met in a hotel.
Okay, wait a second.
He was a person for learner shops. He was from New York.
Yeah.
He came to Little Rock. They said, you'll only have to go to Little Rock once. You're going to open a store there, and that's it. We'll have you back in New York. And he'd travel all over the country. And so we met. He asked me to marry him 3 days later. I laughed at him. But then a year later, we did get married. And then we lived in Little Rock for a year before we moved to Texas, and that was in 1975.
And you moved because of
his job.
His job? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you moved here, what city did you move to?
We moved to Arlington.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah. We were there for a year, and then they were building a subdivision out here in 1976.
Called Walnut Creek.
Well, I was in the Hillcrest.
Okay.
The Fox and Jacobs little subdivision in Hillcrest, and we lived there for 2 years, and then we moved to Walnut Creek.
Okay.
And then I got the job with the builder for building Walnut Creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
No. So how long did you do that?
I did that for 5 years.
Okay.
I was vice president of the Tremel Crow.
Right.
And Tom Corbin was a partner. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I got my start. It was really so magical because we built all the houses. And then when I went into selling for Coldwell Banker, I kind of had my whole specter of people. So
wow.
It was fun. It was a gift.
Yeah. So when that finished in that 5-year time period, then what'd you do?
I went with Coldwell Banker, I sold in Mansfield mostly. Then I went with Remax, was with Remax on 2 separate occasions. And just the whole time I, was in real estate. I did a lot of community stuff because, when you're real estate is such a perfect business to be a flyabout, to be involved. I was president of the Ladies' Chamber twice. I was on the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce, the literacy board. I just was in all those things. And it was real little then.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like a big fish in a very, very little pond. And that was fun, but it really wasn't very important.
Well, I can remember, I mean, Walnut Creek, there was nothing out here.
No.
That was actually the first major thing. And then what was the first, I want to think, was it a grocery store?
Winn-Dixie.
Winn-Dixie that was built?
Winn-Dixie.
Yeah, it's interesting the things that, and then it just blew up. But
it
back
really
then
did.
there wasn't, you had to go to town to get anything.
I ran for the city council in 1983, and at that point in time, the big talk around town was everybody stay out.
Yeah,
we're here, we love it, don't want anybody. And I'm like, that's not going to work. I mean, cities move south. I mean, that's just a thing. And so Arlington was exploding, and they were going to come here, and they did. And by the way, I lost the race, which was a good thing.
Yeah,
because I wouldn't have been a real estate agent if I'd have been on the city council. I don't think.
Yeah. So, you've been in real estate for how many years now?
I think it's right at 43. Yeah.
Okay. And you've seen a lot of changes happen, but what's probably been the most consistent thing during that 40-year time period?
Building, growth, new businesses, just new people coming in, getting people involved in the community. It's like, even now, I'll drive down the street and I'll think, gosh, when did that go up? How fast did that go up? And now we're looking at movie theaters, and when I first came, we had Beaky's Fried Chicken. We had 2 pizza places. And then when McDonald's landed on the corner of Walnut Creek, we thought we had died and gone to heaven.
Yeah.
And so then it just kind of built from there.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to be here.
I'm going to adjust that so it doesn't get in the mic.
Oh, okay.
little details. So I can remember, I think one of the things that impressed me and has always impressed me about you, way back when I first moved here, your face was everywhere. I mean, you did a very good job of self-promotion.
Yeah. And
I always was impressed with that, the ability that you had to do that. I mean, at the grocery store, Dee Davey's face was looking at me on the cart.
Or my baby sat on your face today.
Yeah, exactly. Billboards.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about a new business coming in? What would be the advice that you would have to someone? I mean, you've been doing business here for over 40 years.
Well, what we did with newspapers and getting involved with the community, I mean, when you get your picture in the newspaper like every week, and we actually had a newspaper that came out twice a week, then, it's like repetition. Repetition creates familiarity. And so now the internet does it. Facebook, Instagram, all those different things in kind of a different way, because you have to tell your own story. And everybody, when I was in the newspaper, it was like, I got this award, or I did this, or I was chamber president, or whatever. And that made impressions on people, because it's like, oh, I see her picture and I hear they say she does it. And so they take it as fact, which is interesting, isn't it?
It is. Well, it still happens today, right?
I know, really.
You put if you know how to control your message. If you control the message, then you know what's being said,
Exactly.
and then you're creating a persona, which is what
Right.
you're good at doing.
And it also, the things that you do build whatever your reputation is going to be. Is it going to be a good thing? Is it going to be a bad thing? I always felt I didn't set out to have a good reputation. It's just like, okay, you do the best you can, and it is what it is. And somehow I managed to get a lot of respect. I did good work. I worked really hard. And my husband traveled all the time, so I worked really hard. And that just, that impacts people in different ways.
Right.
So
back to real estate. What do you foresee happening in the near future in the real estate market?
That's an excellent question that everybody's asking these days. I think people are always going to want a home.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to have to look at different ways of providing those homes. I think we're going to have to build homes that house multiple families, like a house that'll have a mother and father and maybe the daughter in there. We've got it because houses are just too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when your average income is $75,000 and it takes $125,000 to buy a $150,000 house that you can't find,
mm-hmm.
there's an issue there.
Yeah.
So I think houses are going to get smaller, and that's okay. Or the big houses are going to be housing more than one family. They're building them so big. Some of the big ones are just, but the building has not slowed down in Mansfield. Lee wrote a really good article about what the nation says and how it compares to Mansfield. Mansfield is just golden. Somebody told me one time, he said, I went somewhere and told them I was from Mansfield, and they said, that is the rock star. Mansfield is the place to be. And evidenced by all the businesses coming in, and the builders are just going nuts. Now, that was happening in the 80s too, except the interest rate wasn't just 9%. It was 18 and 21. But houses still sold. They made ways for people to own a home. And I think as long as we have that desire to have a home, the pride of home ownership, that's going to continue.
Okay. So, do you have a motto or a creed that you live by?
I have always, when I first started reading things like Napoleon Hill and all of the Zig Ziglar and all those, the one thing that I always hooked into is you become what you think about. And I guess if there's one thing that would come right, that's one thing. It's we are what we think about, because that's all we can be. If we it's like, who was it? Watson said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And that's the truth. The confidence level makes you know that you've become confident because that's what you thought you were. So that speaks to me better than almost everything, because it encompasses so much.
Okay. Words of wisdom or advice that you would give someone who's in business today, maybe within their first 5 years?
We have some really good agents coming on board, and they're learning things that I didn't learn in the late 70s and early 80s. It just wasn't out there. But now agents can work really hard and be a lot more creative and do more business. And they're doing that. And I would say consistency. You've got to be consistent. That's not a very glamorous word, but if you do what you do every day to the very best of your ability, bless you, you're going to do something right. And when you do right consistently, that's what it's just not a get rich quick business.
You know, nothing is.
Really?
That's what, yeah. I mean, that's what I think. I think most people, and that's why a lot of businesses fail within the first 5 years, is they expect that when they do something, it's going to happen really fast, or they set up. So where is it? And it just doesn't work that way.
And why should it?
Game.
Why should it?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, we don't pop on the earth being, you know, successful,
right? Because
we're here and we grow into that. I know there's a lot of online business stuff now, and there's a lot of internet, and it promotes the get rich quick. You know, you can do this, and you should be making $1 million a year in your first year, and all that. It doesn't work that way. It is easier now because of some of the tools we have, but you can't give up consistency, and you can't give up hard work. You've got to be a little smarter, but I think there's a great opportunity for real estate people in all lines. There's commercial, there's property management, there's being a realtor's assistant. There's so many areas of real estate that you can be in, and it's a service business. And I think that was what my base was. This is something that brings joy. It makes people happy. It gets them where they want to be. Sometimes it gets them out of what they want, out of where they are. And it's a service. It's a service business.
So what do you think about technology and how that's impacting businesses and real estate?
I think technology is wonderful. It's provided so much. I remember when I used to do relocation stuff, and I would have to take pictures and put them on a piece of paper and do my write-up, and then send them into the company and explain all. Well, I don't have to do that anymore. I can take a picture, send it on. It's remarkable. The AI stuff that's coming down, I love what I'm doing with it, but it's minuscule to what it will be. And I don't even know how to project what I think it will be. But, you know, somebody's going to use it for good. Somebody's going to use it for bad. That's just the way good things happen.
So what's your favorite book?
Oh, geez. The Magic of Thinking Big. I loved that. Anything Zig Ziglar's ever written. I like historical novels. And I end up reading almost everything I read is either self-help, real estate related, or something to do better. You know, let's do a different thing. And it's almost always related to real estate for myself and for what I can share with my agents.
Do you remember Tom Hopkins? He used to do a lot of stuff with the real estate industry, training, sales training.
He was
motivation.
Oh, yes.
He always kind of would team up with Zig Ziglar.
Yeah. He was the one that started at 18, and his first suit was a band suit. And he would go to the front door and knock on the door, and the person would answer and say, "I don't want any." Then he would go to the back door, and he would knock on the back door. And that's a story that he told. But yes, he was very powerful, very good. And I listened to him, Danielle Kennedy, Jim Rohn. Just, I mean, those are the pearls of wisdom.
Well, when you think about sales, because no matter what business you're in, you've got to be able to sell it. Right? And I think that's, again, another thing that creates issues in businesses, because whoever starts it usually is not sales minded.
Mm-hmm.
So from a sales perspective, what advice do you have?
From a sales perspective, right now, I think it's incredibly important that we learn to read people, that we learn what people want,
Mm-hmm.
how they think what they do, why they think what they do, and not run into them. I mean, you can't sell something by telling something.
Right.
You sell by listening,
right,
and finding out where people want to be. That's why I like that movie Suits so well. Is because they're like, no, we don't want to do it this way. We've got to make them do it.
Yeah.
And
you've got to play. What is it? He says. Harvey Specter says, "Play to the man."
Play to the man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why would we think that everybody should think like us?
Right.
Why don't we try to figure out what they're thinking,
mm-hmm.
and then I can be better prepared to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't give a rip.
Yeah.
What I think.
No. Well, it's not important.
No.
Yeah.
And I think maybe in this age of technology and how things can be so easy, we do think, we tend to think we can do a lot of stuff by ourselves, and it's all about us. And narcissism is getting to be a big deal these days. And I read a lot about that too. But it just doesn't make any sense to me
mm-hmm.
that somebody would think that I'm more important than them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to buy anything from me
mm-hmm.
if they think that I think I'm more important than them. It's just, that's human nature.
So what are some of when you think about a brand new agent, brand new salesperson, what are some of the most common mistakes that they make?
I think, the number one thing is they think the work is going to be really easy.
Yeah.
And I start my agents off with, get your database,
mm-hmm.
get your sphere of influence, find out who those people are, get to know them even better than you already do, build that base, do things to help them be a resource.
Mm-hmm.
And by being a resource, you've become that servant heart,
mm-hmm.
and you've become the person that they turn to for any number of things. And eventually they're going to buy or sell a house, or they're going to know somebody who wants to.
That's right.
And they're going to turn to that person that they see consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And that is probably where the biggest downfall, because it takes time.
It does. And that means that you have to be financially prepared for that.
Exactly. Yeah. People just say they don't.
And they're not.
When you pay your dues, your car insurance, or your car, buy
mm-hmm.
gas. I mean, it's an expensive business,
mm-hmm.
but it should be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a real estate agent can make the salary of a surgeon these days.
Mm-hmm.
If you work hard, work smart, and it's a great career.
Mm-hmm.
But it takes time.
Yeah.
And I think that's the young ones are learning that now. I think because they're teaming up and they're building teams, and they don't have to work so hard individually. But that's the number one thing. It's just getting to know people, being able to do stuff for them. It has nothing to do with real estate.
And that's true in any business, any sales. And a lot of times I think what happens too is salespeople who work for somebody, there's a pressure to produce quickly. And then sometimes what happens is you get so caught up, or maybe you put the time in, then you get caught up handling all of your business, and you quit filling your pipeline. And then that
Absolutely.
And then psychologically, it's hard to get over that.
You're depleted.
Yeah. Because it's like starting all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, Danielle Kennedy used to say, when she's really feeling down and she's not doing very well, she calls up her best clients and
mm-hmm.
says, I'm just looking for some good rumors. I want, because she knows they're going to say you were the best. We had such a good time. Everything was great. Da, 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 da. Now we read our reviews.
Yeah.
But that is, you're going to get down. Mm-hmm. You're going to have a slump. I mean, it's
life.
Yeah. It really wouldn't be a challenge if you didn't have slumps sometimes. Mm-hmm. But you figure out a way to get out of them. And you always learn something from it. Every mistake, every time we fail, we learn something.
I think that's a perfect place to end it. But that's
don't make mistakes.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to fail.
John Maxwell has written a book called Failing Forward, mm-hmm. and he talks about that. If you're gonna fail, figure out a way to make that failure a forward-thinking failure rather than a backward-thinking.
Okay.
So
thank you, Miss Dee.
Thank you. I have some words from a wise New Age sage.
Okay.
Deion Sanders.
Okay.
Several of y'all made a comment about my attire when you walked in. Thank you for that. Well, he says, if you look good, you feel good. If you feel good, you do good. If you do good, you play good. And if you play good, they pay good. That applies to football, but anywhere
everything
you go.
Else. Yeah, that's right. All right.
Thank you, Lori.